Hey guys, it's Maymay, and it's time for another Scripture Art Journal week. And this week's scripture comes from Psalm 91:4. Now, this might be familiar to some of you guys because my scripture stamp set this week is this scripture. I took it straight from the set that I created for our scripture club. Now, I rarely do that, but this scripture has just really been on me this week, and I thought, there's a reason that this is so timely for me to create this into a stamp set, and it's also timely for me to use it in my scripture journal. And before we get started, or as we get started, I want to say that this week's scripture art journal I'm going to dedicate to my friend Sheila McShay. Sheila passed away this week from a bout of lung cancer, and she was a wonderful woman of God, and her memorial service on Wednesday was a beautiful testament to that and how she let God lead her in everything. And at her service, I saw her children and her husband and everyone who was so loved by her, and vice versa. There was so much love in her family. And I watched them as they grieved and as they remembered the happy times and the joyful times. And I was reminded that, in those times, God will cover us with his feathers. He will protect us in his wings. He will pull us to him. And I was seeing him do that with everyone. And it was such a beautiful service because Sheila was such a woman of God, and we know where she is, and we know that she is dancing on streets of gold, and I'm so happy for her, and I just remember her family in my prayers. And so I want you guys to also be praying for her family as they go through this. Sheila was a YouTuber as well. She made cards. She was known as She's a Sassy Lady for a long time. Just a sweet, wonderful lady. She actually introduced me to card parties, which was super cool, and I owe a lot of that to her, and I love her for that. And so anyway, I wanted to make sure I mentioned her. I felt like she deserved that. And this scripture, I hope this week, can speak to you if you're hurting, if you've lost a loved one, or if you're going through a time in your life where you need God to protect you. There's two things I love. My brother spoke a sermon one time, and two things I took from it. He talked on God's protection and God's provision. And this scripture reminds me of how God will protect us when we need it, and he provides when we need it, and he is always there for us. I even wrote to myself here, God protects his children so many times. God protects his children so many times, I can allow myself to forget that he does that and allow myself to imagine that I'm all alone. And I do that to myself. I forget that I'm not alone, that God is with me. And I don't want to forget that. So I encourage you guys to focus on the scripture and how God will be with you. It doesn't say when you go through a certain time or when there's a certain thing happening. It just says all the time. He will be with you. He will protect you. He will hold you close. He will cover you under his wings. So I hope that this speaks to you this week. I know it does to me. And it's really cool that I get to use one of my stamp sets for this, because I rarely do in my books. I do sometimes, but very rarely. And I thought this would be a fun one to do. So I want to show you real quick. I showed this in the video I did for the sneak peek of the scripture set, and I want to do something similar to what I did here to use on my page. So you see how this feather is kind of multicolored. I'm going to do something similar, but we're going to make 3 different ones, because I think I'm going to use 3 feathers on this page. We'll see. I really don't know how it's going to lay out yet, but we're going to try. And I have to use my MISTI for this because I'm going to be doing some kind of stamping and restamping with this. So I'm going to open this guy up, and I'm going to cut a piece of paper to fit it. And I can go 4 3/4 on this guy. So let me do that real quick. So I just cut this page in half. That'll give me a couple pieces, because I'm going to be doing, like I said, 3 feathers. And I just want to use this white paper to get the feathers. So now I'm going to load this feather on the other side. This is my stamp set that I've been using. And boy, can you tell it's loved, because I have inked and inked and inked this guy. Look at this feather, how stained he's been used. So like I said, I'm going to make a couple of these. So I'm going to put this down. Now, I was suggested the other day that I need to move my magnets closer to my stamp set, that I didn't do that close enough, so I'm going to try that today. I'm going to pick this feather up, and now I'm just going to play with ink. And I tell you what, to make this easier for you to see, I'm going to lift this guy up and put this white paper underneath it so you can see that feather stamp as I'm inking. Now, I've been playing with my VersaFine inks, and that's super great. I love those inks. But I think I'm going to play with these mementos to give me a little more color, because I want my 3 feathers to be very different from each other. So I'm going to start by pulling out 3 colors from this pack. And I like Toffee Crunch. I'm just going to pick 3 colors. How about pink? And how about, let's go crazy. How about Pear Tart. Let's just see what that looks like. So I'm going to use these three, and I'm also going to use my black or either a dark brown ink. We'll see what happens when we get going. So what I want to do first is take the lightest ink, which in my opinion is going to be the pink. So I'm going to ink the top of the feather with the pink, just like this. Wow, I don't see any ink there, so we'll see if when we stamp that, if there's any there. Then I'm going to go to the middle and do the Toffee Crunch. Okay, I can see some ink there. And then I'm going to go to the bottom with Pear Tart. And, oh, help if I'd had the ink side and ink the bottom up. Now, when I did this with my VersaFine inks, I took a baby wipe and I blended those colors together on my stamp, but I'm not going to do that here, and the reason is I'm using the dewdrops, which tend to kind of pull up, and so I'm probably going to have to stamp this a couple times anyway. So I'm just going to do this and see what we get. And then, oh, that's not bad. Look how good that looks. I love that. That's perfect. That's just what I wanted. So I'm going to leave that like that and put these three colors up here. And now I'm going to go back, and in this same set is the rich cocoa ink. And now I'm going to do something super fun. I'm going to zoom you guys in for it. This is a technique called rocking and rolling, and it's where you just rock and roll your stamp on the edges of the ink pad. But since I'm bringing the ink pad to it, I'm really just inking up the very edges of the stamp. Now notice I'm making a huge mess on my Misty. No big deal. I'm just going to take a wet wipe and I'm going to wipe that ink away off of the Misty so it's not a problem. That'll clean right off. Just like so. And now I'm going to make sure my paper is right in the far corner, and I'm going to bring this over on top of that feather I just did. And I'm hoping that I get a nice chocolate edge on that feather. And I did. Look at that. I love this feather stamp so much. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to play with it. Oh, I just love it. Been doing so much with it. So now I'm going to clean the stamp from the ink we just used, just like so. And then I'm going to move these magnets, ooh, not close to each other, almost forgot. I'm going to move this stamp over as well because I want to get 3 total. I might can get 3 on this page. So I'm going to put it here this time, bring my magnets over, and pick this guy up and pick 3 new colors. And I don't want it to be anything like that, so what I'm going to do is put these guys back in their container and go to another set of inks. These guys were open, so let's see. I like this cantaloupe color. Let's bring that there. I like this sunset plum. That's pretty with that. And how about an orange maybe? This one's called Tangelo. I kind of like that together, so let's try that on a feather. So the same thing here. I'm going to start with the lightest color, which is cantaloupe, and I'm going to do that to the top. You can see that my feather is pretty much getting stained in 3 different colors because I've done this so much. Then I'm going to go to the orange, which to me is the next color in the row. And I'm kind of overlapping those colors. No big deal because I'm taking a darker color on top of a lighter ink, so it won't be a problem. Then I'm going to take the purple. Oop, I haven't used this one before. And I'm going to ink up the bottom. I just love how this looks. Now, when you have something like this that has this very definite line, you can take your baby wipe and just wad it up so you have a little point while it's wet, and just tap between those 2 lines and kind of soften that up just a little bit. And then we'll take this over and stamp it and see what we get. I like to run my hand down it just to make sure I'm getting even pressure everywhere. Then lift that up. Oh, look how beautiful. I love it. Now for this one, I'm going to use that same rich cocoa ink for the edge. I think I should keep the edges the same. So I'm going to go back to it, and I'm going to do that rock and roll technique again. Just like that. I'm going to clean off the excess ink. And then bring this, oh, almost forgot. Make sure that your paper's in the same spot. And then I'm going to bring this guy over and pick up that brown as an outline. Look how pretty. I just love how that looks. Now what I'm going to do is have a lot of fun. I'm going to take the stamp this time. Let me clean it off. And I'm going to put it at the top of the page because I don't need any more paper because I'm going to cut these out. I don't think I told you that. I'm going to cut these guys out. So I'm just going to pick it up. We're going to find 3 new inks and do another one. For this one's going to be fun. I'm going to use Teal Zeal, Rhubarb Stalk, and London Fog. This one's going to be pretty. I think I'm going to let the rhubarb be at the bottom. I'm going to let the London Fog be at the top. So just tap that onto the top there. Then I'm going to tap on this Teal Zeal. That's pretty bright, isn't it? It's going to be pretty. Then I'm going to tap on the rhubarb. think I'm going to take the tip, the little pointed edge, and just kind of blend that together like that, and go back and do the same thing and use the tip of this Memento and blend those two inks together where they meet and just see what that does. And then come back with my baby white with a clean spot and just blend a little bit right across those two lines. All right, here we go. It's time to see what we get. This is fun to me. You just never know what the feathers are going to look like. Oh, I like that one. Very pretty. Now, I think I'll use the same chocolate. That'll tie them all together. So I'll do some rocking and rolling technique on this guy. Get some chocolate on the edge. Clean that off of my Misty and then stamp it up. Check the placement of the paper and then stamp it. That shouldn't take too much to get down there. Look how pretty. I love it. I love playing with this stamp like that. Oh, it's so pretty. So now I'm going to take this and my fussy cutting scissors and I'm just going to cut around the edge, and I think I'm going to leave a tiny white edge around it. And that way I don't really have to get into all the little feathery pieces. I can just leave this edge. Now you can use your brother's Scan and Cut here. If you've got a Scan and Cut, do that. I have one. But I just think since we're just sitting here and I think there's only 3, I'll just get this done pretty quick. So I've cut my 3 feathers out and have a piece of white paper that's cut to the size of my scripture art journaling. And I'm going to put these feathers here at the top, kind of going just up and down like that. I just think that looks really cool like that. And then I'm using the sentiment that says, he will cover you with his feathers. This is our scripture. He will cover you with his feathers. Under his wings you'll find refuge. And I'm just lining them up on the page. And I'm going to probably use a lot of feathers. The little tiny feather as well. I like it between these 2 sentiments. I think it's kind of pretty and it kind of stretches it out on the page. And I think that looks cool like that. Like it's just kind of falling there. And then something I did on this stamp set that's a little different than usual. I made the scripture reference a separate stamp so that if you didn't want to use this all together, you could just use this scripture reference with one portion of this, maybe just with the feather part or just with the wing part. But I think that's going to be pretty right there. So I've laid all that out. And now I'm going to get my Fisker stamp press. Haven't used this guy in a while on camera, but I still love him. I use him all the time. So I'm going to pick all of those up together just where I had them. So now I'll be able to stamp this down and get this just right. Now, what color do I want to stamp it in? I think I made that crooked when I picked it up. So let me straighten it up. Sorry if my head's in the way. I think I want to do it in a green, like a really nice green. Let me see what I've got. I've got this this cottage ivy green. I think I'm going to use that. So let me ink this all up really well. Then I'm going to take this back to the page. I think it's going to go somewhere like that. Oh, I put my scripture reference crooked when I moved it. I should have left it alone. It just felt crooked. But now it will definitely be crooked. I'm not going to stress about it. Press this in really well so everything gets stamped. Lift that up. Oh, I like that. I like that so much. Okay, so now I want to glue my feathers into place. And I'm wondering, do I want to put... I really like it kind of bright and bold like that. So let's see. Let's get some glue. So put some glue on the back of these guys. I think I'm gonna tilt these a little bit. I think I've changed my mind. I'm gonna have 2 go low and then that middle one go a little higher. Now I think I'm gonna pull out my black pen. Nope, I think I'm gonna use a new gold pen. I love this pen. I'm gonna take this gold pen and I'm gonna go on this feather and I'm gonna add just some stripes in here to be like loose feather pieces. And that'll put a little sparkle on the page too. I think around them, I'm just going to do just some graphic lines. I don't really know how I'll do it or stop. Something like that. Just for some movement. Just to give them a little something else there to do that. And then, do I want to be done? This is what I do to myself. I always do too much. All right, now I'm going to come to this feather. I'm going to run some gold around the center portion of that feather. And then put just a few stripes coming out. Just like that to bring that gold down. I'm going to stop now because you can overdo these simple ones. You can really do it. And I do that all the time. So you can play and have all the fun you want, but I think that is enough to do exactly what I wanted. And then that's going to go into my book. I love how white that is, how bright and cheery. So we're going to glue that down with the art glitter glue. And there we go. Our page for this week is done. I really love those feathers so much. That was so fun to do and to play with those inks. And imagine what all you can do. Something else you can do instead of using inks, if you have markers, not your alcohol markers, but markers that are like water-based, you could certainly use markers on here and get kind of the same effect. I love it. All right, so just to give you a little flip back at what we've done in the past, some pages. If you're interested in seeing all of these, they're all posted over on my Facebook group, which is called Hide His Word in My Heart. I encourage you guys to look at the link below and go join us and check everything out. These are some of the most recent ones. Let's go back way back. Here's the very first one we did together. Sometimes it's fun to look back. We have a lot. We're already halfway through the year. So there is a lot here. Look at these. Gosh, this takes me back. I love this page. Love it. All right, guys. So that is today's scripture art journaling page. I hope you enjoyed that. And I cannot wait to see what you guys are doing. So like I said, join us on our Facebook group, which is called Hide His Word in My Heart. There's a link below. And we look forward to seeing what you're making. Thanks so much for joining us. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.